The grand palace of the Zarathian Empire stood like a mountain of silver glass against the dark sky. Inside, endless halls glittered with blue lights, filled with noble families wearing long flowing robes. Tonight was not an ordinary night. Tonight was a diplomatic gathering. For the first time in history, humans had been invited to walk among the stars of the oldest empire in the galaxy. Princess Solara of Zarathia sat high upon the dais beside her father, the emperor. She wore a crown of crystal, and her dark hair fell in waves down her shoulders. Outwardly, she kept her face calm the way tradition demanded. But inside, her heart beat quickly. She was curious, more curious than she should have been. The guests entered in groups. Tall insectoid diplomats from Krivak, scaled warriors from Dorlath, soft tentacled philosophers from Valon. Solara had seen them all before. They bowed too. Her father offered gifts and spoke words that were heavy with respect and fear. Then came the humans. Solara leaned forward slightly as they entered. They did not bow in the old style. Instead, they walked straight, heads high, eyes bright. Their clothes were simple compared to the jeweled robes of other species, yet something about them was striking. They did not seem afraid. At the front was a young diplomat named Ethan. He had short brown hair, sharp eyes, and a smile that seemed out of place in the solemn hall. He bowed politely, but not too low, and then he spoke with a voice that carried clearly through the chamber. On behalf of Earth and her colonies, Ethan said, we thank the Zarathian Empire for this invitation. May it be the beginning of trust and friendship. His words were plain, but his tone was confident. Solara noticed how some nobles frowned. They were used to fear, not friendship. But she also noticed how the humans looked at one another, nodding and smiling as if they shared an unspoken bond. For the rest of the ceremony, Solara found her eyes drifting back to them again and again. Humans laughed softly with each other, even while standing among alien lords. They did not seem weighed down by the stiffness of protocol. They were different. Later that night, as music filled the halls and guests moved to the feast tables, Solara walked quietly through the crowd. Her father was busy with the council elders. No one noticed as she stepped closer to the human group. Ethan was speaking with another ambassador when Solara's voice interrupted. Tell me, human, she said softly, how is it that your kind grows so quickly? The words left her mouth before she could stop them. Zarathians were trained never to show curiosity so openly, but she could not help herself. It had been on her mind ever since she read the reports. In only a few centuries, humans had spread across more colonies than some species had in thousands of years. Ethan blinked, surprised. Then he bowed his head slightly, showing respect without groveling. It is because of the way we live, princess, he answered carefully. Humans can have children year-round. Families are not rare or chosen only by rulers. We build them ourselves. We raise our young, and they grow fast. Our strength comes from numbers, yes, but also from love. Solara tilted her head. Love? The word was not foreign to her, but in the Empire, it was not something spoken in politics. Yes, Ethan said, smiling faintly. A mother protecting her child. A father working day and night for his family. Two people choosing each other not because of power, but because they wish to. That is how humans multiply, not only by birth, but by bonds. Solara felt something stir in her chest. Her people reproduced rarely. Only once every few decades could a Zarathian pair produce an heir, and most unions were arranged for status. Love was a word used in songs, not in life. Before she could ask more, one of her father's advisors appeared at her side, frowning. Princess, you should not trouble yourself with outsiders. Solara gave a polite nod, hiding her frustration, and let the advisor guide her away. But her thoughts remained with Ethan's words. Families built by choice. Children raised with care. A people who laughed together, who lived together, who multiplied with joy instead of duty. That night, Lying in her chamber beneath the shining dome of stars, Solara could not sleep. She thought of her father's empire, proud, powerful, but cold. She thought of the humans, small in number, yet spreading like fire across the void. And she thought of Ethan's eyes when he spoke of love. The next day, she returned to the hall early before the council gathered. She found Ethan studying a glowing chart of stars. "You spoke of your people multiplying through bonds," she said quietly. "Show me." Ethan looked surprised again, but then he nodded. He touched the chart and the stars shifted. Worlds lit up one after another, each a human colony. "Here," he said, pointing. "This is Mars, our first step. Then Luna, Europa, Titan. We built homes, not just outposts. Families moved there, not armies. And soon after, new generations were born under alien skies. Every colony becomes not just a station, but a world of its own." Solara stared at the glowing map. So many lights, so many worlds touched by a species younger than most in the galaxy. "And you never stop?" she asked. "Never," Ethan said. "Because every child carries the dream further. We are not many compared to others, but we keep going. Always." Solara felt her throat tighten. She had always been told Zerathians were eternal, destined to rule through wisdom and patience. But suddenly she wondered, what was eternity worth if it carried no laughter, no warmth, no children running freely through the stars? When she returned to her chambers again, she was no longer the same. She began requesting records of human colonies from the archives. She watched hours of footage, children playing in dusty streets on Mars, families building houses on green fields of new worlds, lovers choosing each other under alien suns. With every image, her fascination grew. Solara, Princess of Zerathia, heir to the oldest empire, found herself thinking a dangerous thought. Perhaps humans are not a threat because they multiply quickly. Perhaps they are strong because they know how to live. The sun rose over the Zerathian palace, casting long silver beams across the polished floors. Princess Solara sat alone in the grand library, a place she had once found dull. But now, the shelves filled with records, holograms, and reports of human colonies seemed like a treasure trove. Every detail fascinated her. She leaned over a holographic map, tracing the lines connecting human worlds. Each connection pulsed faintly with light, representing families, children, and communities. Solara had spent the night watching footage of humans on these colonies. Some images were ordinary, humans, walking or eating, but others captivated her more. She saw a mother lifting her child onto her shoulders, a father teaching a child to plant seeds, and young couples laughing together under alien skies. Unlike Zerathians, who reproduced only once in decades and often in silence, humans multiplied, constantly, everywhere. It was not just numbers. It was vitality. It was life itself. Her curiosity had grown into obsession. She needed to understand this human way of living, not just from records, but directly. Later that day, she sought out Ethan again. He was in a quiet courtyard, tending to a small garden of human plants, each adapted to the palace's artificial environment. "You're studying humans again," he said with a small smile, not hiding surprise. "I thought one day was enough." Solara shook her head. "One day is never enough. I want to understand them fully." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Understand them? Or understand yourself?" Solara paused. He was right. Part of her fascination was personal, why humans were so full of life, but another part was something deeper. Zerathians were proud, but their pride was cold. Humans were free. Perhaps she envied that freedom. I want to see how they live," Solara said carefully. "Not just numbers or colonies. How they care for each other, how they choose each other, how they survive." Ethan studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Very well. I can show you, but it will not be easy. Human life is not always clean or simple. It can be harsh, Solara's eyes sparkled. Harshness did not scare her, it intrigued her. I am ready. Over the next week, Solara observed humans in every way she could. She attended feasts in the palace, watching human guests interact. She saw humans helping each other without command, sharing food and water, offering comfort when others were hurt. Unlike other alien species whose bonds were mostly political, humans seemed to act from choice. One evening she asked Ethan a bold question. Why do humans multiply so fast compared to Zerathians? Is it only biology? Ethan shook his head. Not just biology. Humans care for their young. They plan for them, yes, but they also take risks for them. Every child represents hope. It's not just numbers, it's trust and courage. We invest in the future willingly. Solara nodded slowly. She had always thought her people were strong because of power and longevity. But humans were strong for a different reason: love and choice. Curiosity pushed her further. She wanted to test herself. If humans multiplied through bonds, could she understand it by living like them? The thought both thrilled and frightened her. Her experiments began in small ways. She tried simple human activities: cooking meals, planting seeds, learning games children played in recordings. At first she struggled. Her hands were delicate compared to human dexterity. She spilled water and broke pots. But Ethan never scolded her. He simply guided her. You must let go of perfection, he said. Humans are messy. They fail, but they try again. That's how they grow. Solara felt a strange sense of freedom in Thesons. The sky above the human colony was streaked with gold and violet as the sun dipped behind distant mountains. Princess Solara stood at the edge of a ridge, watching children play in the open fields below. Their laughter echoed through the valley, unrestrained and pure. She had never heard such sounds in the palace halls. There, people spoke in whispers or commands. Here, voices carried freedom, joy, and life itself. Ethan approached, carrying a small basket of fruits from the garden. He handed it to her with a quiet smile. They are remarkable, aren't they? He asked. Solara nodded, her gaze still on the children. Yes, and I want to understand them more deeply. Not just their work or play, but everything. Ethan tilted his head, studying her carefully. Everything? That includes their families, their choices, their bonds. That is not simple. Humans live with many risks, and sometimes it can be harsh. Are you ready? Solara turned to him, her eyes shining with determination. I am ready. I want to experience what it truly means to live like a human, not from afar, not as a princess observing. I want to try to live it myself. Ethan was silent for a long moment. Then he gave a slow nod. Very well. But understand this. The human way is not just about doing tasks. It is about forming connections, trusting, choosing. It can be dangerous if done lightly. Are you willing to face that? I am, Solara said firmly. Over the next days, Solara began what she called her experiment of understanding. She lived among the colonists as one of them. She woke at dawn, worked in the fields, carried water from the streams, and repaired homes damaged by winds. At first, her body struggled. Her muscles ached in ways they had never ached in the soft comfort of the palace. But she persisted, refusing to give in. Each night, she observed the families. Parents laughed, argued, comforted, and guided their children. Couples shared quiet moments, holding hands or whispering together under starlit skies. Solara noticed something she had never seen in Zerathia: choice. Humans were not forced into unions by politics, duty, or fear. They chose each other. They chose to love. Her heart ached with longing. She wondered what it would feel like to have someone she chose, someone who chose her in return. She had never experienced that before. Her father had decided her alliances before she was born. Her court expected obedience, not love. But here, love was voluntary, alive and bold. One evening, while observing a couple teaching their child to climb a rock, Solara turned to Ethan. "Do humans ever fear the future?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled. "Of course they do. Fear is natural. But they do not let it control them. They act despite fear. That is part of why humans multiply and thrive. They act, they connect, they take risks for each other. Fear is present, but not the ruler." Solara felt a thrill in her chest. Her people were ruled by logic, by tradition, and by fear of failure. Humans were ruled by choice, love, and courage. Days turned into weeks. Solara's interactions with the humans grew bolder. She spoke to parents, asking how they balanced work and care. She played with children, learning their games, and laughed openly, something she had never done in the palace. Every moment deepened her understanding of human life. Ethan began to guide her in more personal matters. He explained how humans formed bonds, how couples communicated, and how love often grew naturally from trust and shared experience. Solara listened carefully, sometimes blushing at the intimacy of the lessons. One afternoon, while helping repair a roof damaged in a storm, Solara realized something. She wanted to participate fully in this way of life, not just observe it. She wanted to connect, to choose, to be chosen. She wanted to experience the human way, even if it meant breaking Zarathian rules. That night, as the colony settled, Solara turned to Ethan. Her voice was steady but firm. "I want to try the human way," she said. "Not just in work or observation, but in bonds, in choosing, in living fully. Will you help me?" Ethan froze. He had expected curiosity, maybe questions, but not a direct request like this from a princess of the Zarathian Empire. He knew the consequences. The Empire could see this as rebellion. Their union could spark political outrage. Yet he also recognized her sincerity. "You understand this is dangerous?" he asked. "I understand," Solara said, "but I cannot remain as I am. I cannot stay only a princess observing life. I want to live it." Ethan studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Very well, I will help you. But you must promise to trust me fully, and you must face every consequence, however difficult." Solara extended her hand. Ethan took it, and for the first time, a silent agreement passed between them, a bond of choice, courage, and understanding. The next days were filled with careful steps. Solara practiced the human ways of trust and connection. She learned how to communicate openly, how to share responsibilities, and how to care for others without authority or command. Ethan guided her, sometimes gently, sometimes firmly, but always with patience. Word spread quietly through the colony of the princess living among them. The humans were cautious at first. A Zarathian princess was a figure of power and awe. Interacting with her could be dangerous. But Solara's humility and dedication won their trust. Slowly, they accepted her as one of their own. During one visit, she saw a couple teaching their child about the stars. Solara asked Ethan, "Do humans always teach their young like this?" He smiled. "Yes. Knowledge is shared, experience is shared. Every generation learns from the previous. And through that, humans multiply, not only in numbers, but in wisdom, in courage, in spirit." Solara nodded slowly. Her mind was racing. Zarathians had long lives and careful planning, but humans multiplied in a different, more unpredictable way. They multiplied in hope, in risk, and in freedom. She wanted that life. She wanted it not only for herself, but for her people. One evening, Solara confronted the first real challenge. A patrol from the Zarathian Council arrived near the colony, suspicious of her absence from the palace. Word had spread that the princess had been spending too much time with humans. The council considered this a threat to their authority. Solara did not hide. She walked out to meet them, standing beside Ethan, her posture calm and strong. The officers sneered, expecting fear. "Princess Solara," the lead officer said, You are far from your duties. The council demands your immediate return. Solara lifted her chin. I am fulfilling a duty greater than obedience, she said firmly. I am learning. I am understanding life beyond walls. I am experiencing what it means to live, to grow, to connect. Humans multiply not through fear, but through courage, and I wish to see that courage in action, fully. The officers looked shocked. Such defiance from a Zarathian princess was unheard of. They whispered among themselves, uncertain of how to respond. Ethan placed a hand gently on Solara's back. You are strong, he whispered. But choose your words carefully. Not everyone will understand your intentions. Solara nodded. She knew the risk. Her rebellion could anger her father, anger the council, and even spark conflict. But she also knew she could not turn back. She had already chosen her path. As the sun set, painting the sky in colors of fire and gold, Solara made a private vow. She would live the human way. She would trust, care, and connect. She would take risks. She would choose freely, and she would encourage others to do the same. Ethan watched her silently, understanding the weight of her decision. He knew that Solara's choice could change the course of Zarathian history. A princess choosing freedom and life over tradition was a bold move, perhaps even a dangerous one. But he also saw her resolve, her courage, and her heart. He would stand by her. The bond between them grew stronger each day, no longer just student and guide. A quiet understanding passed between them. They were companions in a new way of life, partners in a journey few could imagine. And so, in the golden light of the setting sun, Princess Solara of Zarathia took her first true step toward a life unlike any other, a life of freedom, choice, and understanding. She was no longer just a princess observing humans. She was a human student in spirit, ready to face challenges, to form bonds, and to discover what it truly meant to multiply not just in number, but in courage, love, and life. The great chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with light from 1,000 stars. Massive crystal pillars stretched high into the air, and the seats of the most powerful empires curved in a vast circle around the center floor. Voices echoed as delegates debated matters of war, trade, and territory. Into this hall walked Princess Solara of Zarathia. She wore the royal crest upon her robes, but her heart beat not for the empire's traditions. It beat for the truth she had seen among humans. As she entered, whispers rippled through the chamber. Some council members bowed slightly. Others scowled, remembering the rumors. The princess had spent weeks among humans, living as one of them, defying her father's command. Solara's father, Emperor Vedran, sat on a throne of polished obsidian at the far end of the chamber. His eyes were sharp and cold, his jaw set. He had summoned her here himself, not to honor her, but to silence her. Daughter, he said, his voice deep and commanding, you stand before the council to explain your actions. Why have you abandoned your place among us to mingle with a primitive species? Solara stepped forward, her voice steady, though her hands trembled. Father, noble delegates, I have not abandoned my place. I have discovered what your rules have hidden from us. The humans are not primitive. They are Kaita. The days on the frontier world passed slowly, yet they were filled with work and meaning. Solara had once lived in palaces of crystal, surrounded by servants and endless luxury. Now she lived in a small wooden hut, built with her own hands, its roof patched after the last storm. The difference was vast, yet she found herself happier here than she had ever been in the grand halls of Zarathia. The human settlement grew stronger after each hardship. Families rebuilt their homes. Children played among the rocks, and farmers struggled but refused to give up on the land. Every sunrise was a challenge, and every sunset was a victory. Solara joined in all of it. She carried stones, repaired walls, cooked meals, and tended to sick children. The colonists began to see her not as an outsider, but as one of them. Ethan often worked beside her. His hands were rough from years of labor, yet his spirit was steady and kind. He spoke with her in the evenings, teaching her simple human sayings and laughing when she struggled to pronounce them. He shared stories of Earth, of cities filled with light and rivers that stretched farther than the eye could see. To Solara, it was like hearing legends of another world. One night, as they sat by a fire outside the settlement, Solara asked quietly, "Ethan, do you regret leaving Earth to come to these hard colonies?" He shook his head. "No. Earth is beautiful, but it's crowded. Out here, every step matters, every field we plant, every wall we raise, it's the future being built. That's worth the struggle." Solara looked at him, her heart heavy. "I have been told all my life that comfort is the measure of power, that a ruler must sit above her people and command. But here, I see the opposite. You are strongest because you struggle together. You survive because you share the weight." Ethan smiled faintly. "That's humanity. We grow, even when no one wants us to. Maybe that's why the Council fears us." Solara's eyes lowered. She knew he was right. The Council feared humanity's ability to multiply, to spread, to adapt. They saw danger where she saw hope, and now, because of her defiance, she too had become a target. One morning, a ship landed near the settlement. Its hull bore the mark of Zerathia. Solara's heart froze. Soldiers stepped out, armored and armed, their movements sharp and cold. At their head was Commander Kael, a loyal servant of the Emperor. He bowed slightly when he saw her. "Former Princess Solara, by order of the Emperor, you are commanded to return to Zerathia. You are accused of treason against your empire. Come willingly, or we will take you by force." The colonists gathered, whispering nervously. Some reached for tools and weapons, but they were farmers, not soldiers. Solara stood tall, though her heart raced. "I will not return. I have chosen my path. This is my home now." Kael's eyes narrowed. "You disgrace your bloodline. You throw away power for the company of humans. They are beneath you." Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "She belongs with us. If you try to take her, you'll have to go through me first." The commander sneered. "One human cannot stand against Zerathian soldiers." Solara's voice rang clear. "He will not stand alone." The colonists stepped closer, forming a line behind Ethan. They carried nothing more than farming tools, but their eyes burned with resolve. For a moment, the air was tense. Then Kael lifted his hand. His soldiers did not attack. Instead, he studied Solara carefully. "You have changed, Solara," he said slowly. "Once you were only a curious princess. Now you are something else. Very well. I will not drag you away by force. But know this. Your father has declared you an enemy of the Empire. If you remain here, war will follow." With that, Kael turned and led his soldiers back to the ship. Within minutes, they were gone, leaving only silence behind. That night, the settlement gathered around a great fire. The colonists looked at Solara with admiration, but also with worry. "You heard what he said," one man whispered. "The Empire will come for us all." Solara rose, her eyes shining in the firelight. "The Empire fears what you are. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong. You grow even when the universe tries to break you. They cannot stop life itself, and I will stand with you, no matter the cost." Her words filled the colonists with courage. They cheered, and for the first time, Solara felt truly accepted, not as a princess, not as a guest, but as one of them. Later, as the fire burned low, she sat with Ethan on the edge of the gathering. He looked at her with quiet respect. "You made your choice today. You didn't just stand with us. You became one of us." Solara smiled faintly, though tears touched her eyes. "Yes. And it is a choice I will never regret. Titles, crowns, and thrones mean nothing. Here among you I have found something greater. I have found life worth living." The days turned into weeks. Solara and Ethan worked side by side, and slowly the bond between them deepened. It was not the bond of princess and subject, but of equals. They laughed together, shared burdens, and trusted one another without fear. Solara began to understand what it truly meant when humans spoke of multiplying. It was not only about numbers or children, it was about growing stronger together, about passing on hope from one person to another, about creating something that lasted beyond a single life. One evening, as the stars shimmered above, Ethan turned to her. "Solara, do you ever miss it? The palace, the power, the life you left behind?" She thought for a long moment before shaking her head. "No. What I had there was empty. What I have here is real. I would rather struggle with you than sit on a throne alone." Ethan's eyes softened. He reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand. She did not pull away. Instead, she held his hand tightly, her heart steady. In that simple touch, Solara knew she had truly chosen. She was no longer just a Zarathian, no longer just a princess. She was Solara, the woman who stood with humans, the woman who had given up everything for freedom, the woman who had found something greater than power. Far away, in the halls of the council, her father raged. Reports of her actions spread across the stars. Young Zarathians spoke her name with pride. Humans told stories of her courage, and even some other species began to question the council's decrees. The emperor vowed to crush the humans once and for all. Armies gathered, warships prepared. The galaxy trembled at the storm that was coming, but on the frontier world, Solara sat by a fire with Ethan and the colonists, her heart calm. She knew the storm was near, yet she also knew that no empire, no army, and no council could break the bond she had found here, for she had chosen. And that choice was stronger than fear. The horizon was ablaze with the first light of morning, but the frontier world had little time to enjoy the sunrise. On the edges of the settlement, alien warships appeared, sleek, silver, and menacing, bearing the crest of Zerathia. The council had sent a fleet, determined to punish the humans and reclaim the princess who had defied them. Solara stood atop a rocky ridge, her cloak fluttering in the wind. Beside her, Ethan and the colonists gathered, armed only with what they had: farming tools, makeshift weapons, and an unshakable courage. Solara's eyes swept across the horizon. The fleet was massive, far larger than she had imagined. "This is it," Ethan said quietly. "They want to crush us." Solara nodded. "Then we will show them why humans, and anyone who chooses to stand with them, cannot be broken." The fleet descended, hovering like a storm cloud over the settlement. A voice boomed across the valley, amplified by alien technology. "Solara, you are commanded to surrender. Your actions have defied the Empire. Submit or face destruction." Solara took a deep breath. Her heart beat fast, but she did not flinch. "I will not submit," she shouted back, her voice strong. "I have chosen to stand with those who live, those who grow, those who love. Zerathia may rule with fear, but we stand with courage." The alien ships paused, scanning her, assessing the humans. Then, as if expecting a different outcome, the first attacks began, energy blasts streaking toward the colony. Solara and Ethan dove to cover, shouting orders to the colonists. "Move the children to the shelters, protect the food stores, everyone stay together." The humans acted quickly. Despite their lack of formal training, their coordination amazed Solara. Parents formed protective lines around children, farmers carried injured neighbors to safety, and teenagers used traps and barriers they had set up weeks before. Solara's eyes burned with determination. She climbed to a high rock, raising her voice. "Do not fear, stand together. Fight not just with weapons, but with courage, with hope, with your will to survive." The first few ships fired again, but they underestimated the colonists' ingenuity. Makeshift defenses and hidden trenches slowed the attackers. Ethan led small groups to sabotage the landing gear of the larger ships, setting the stage for a counterattack. Solara worked among them, carrying supplies, helping the wounded, and encouraging the frightened. Every step she took reminded her of why she had left the palace: to live, to fight, and to multiply hope in a world that could be dark. Hours passed. The humans and their allies held strong. Solara realized that this battle was not only physical, but symbolic. The Council had underestimated the power of choice, the power of courage shared among people. From the skies, the flagship of Zerathia descended, a massive vessel bristling with energy weapons. A voice boomed from its deck. Solara, you cannot win. Surrender now and you may live. Solara stood on the ridge, her cloak torn, her hands dirty but her eyes fierce. She shouted back, I will never surrender, human not bow to fee.